This episode has been brought to you by Manscaped. The new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is every man's cheat code to look good, feel good, and turn the page on confidence this year. Go to manscaped.com, use the code GOLTS20 for 20% off plus free shipping today. This week on the Heart of the Gulch YouTube show, we sit down with musician/songwriter Dariann Leigh. In today's Walk the Line episode, Dariann gives us an in-studio performance of her single, Love Me, Let Me. Let's check out the episode. We are in the Heart of the Gulch. I'm your host, Tony Mendoza, and today, well, you might as well just bury me on Broadway because I got someone on my chair right now that is amazing. She is kicking butt here in Nashville, Tennessee. She just released her latest single, Just Say It. We got Dariann Leigh in the building.
Hey, y'all. How are you? I'm doing so good. How about you?
Well, it's been a long time coming, this interview.
I know.
I mean, we were supposed to have an interview earlier this year, and I'm super excited because now it seems like it's about to be fall time.
Right.
And everything is starting to really pop off. A lot more singles are coming out.
Right.
So first of all, congratulations on just releasing your latest single, Just Say It.
Thank you.
How's the response been so far?
It's been so cool. This is a very different sound from what I'm used to doing, and the songwriting and everything has been such a process to get to this point. So it's so exciting to see people's responses and to hear people loving it, especially.
What would you categorize your genre?
We're still in country. The songwriting is very country, but we're definitely scratching the edge on pop, for sure.
So is it fair to say country pop?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. It seems like there's so many people today that are going to the country artist lane.
Right.
That were originally pop artists.
Right.
So does it make you feel a little better that, like, because when you first came into country, first of all, how long have you been singing?
Since forever. I had my first solo gig when I was 14. I'm 25 now, so it's been a second.
So what does it feel like now with artists like Post Malone and all these different artists that are coming in that are originally pop and now moving into country? Does that make you feel a little better because that's where your sound is?
Oh, for sure. And it's a great example of somebody else doing it, like you're saying. It's so cool. Also, they're killing it. Everything sounds so incredible.
I mean, there's been so many things that have come out just in 2024.
Right.
And it seems like everyone this year just wants to say that, you know, like Lainey Wilson said, country's cool again.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you were growing up in Minnesota, first of all, where in Minnesota?
From Karlstad, Minnesota, very tiny town.
And you said it's in the northern part of Minnesota.
Yes, like 20 miles from Canada. Close.
Has it been like is it a smaller town or what?
Yeah.
Paint the picture for me about the town.
We have no stoplights. There's one 4-way stop. I graduated one of 14 kids in my entire class, which is normally what catches people.
Really?
Very, very tiny.
Or are you the type that was your town the type that had like a one stoplight came out and everyone celebrated kind of thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
What was that one thing that you remember growing up where you finally got in your small town? You're like, oh my gosh, we finally got something.
I think it was honestly the second. I don't even know if it was crazily celebrated, but we got a Dollar General.
Dollar General?
We got a Dollar General.
Well, I mean, we're in Nashville, home of Dollar General.
Go team.
Yeah, go team.
They popped up so fast out of nowhere, and everybody was like, wow, now we can actually buy more things because we have a smaller grocery store. Mm-hmm. But the Dollar General came and everyone was like, wow, we have more options.
My gosh. You know, that's how you know you live in a really small town, when a Dollar General is like your new Walmart.
It's true.
That is something that is kind of insane. Okay, so then talk to me about, you know, singing. And first of all, I'm not going to ask the stereotypical question, your inspiration, but, you know, as you've what made you want to be in front of people singing? That's not an easy thing to do.
No, I honestly was the kid that like shut all the doors and then would sing. So for me, I was in theater a lot growing up. My eldest brother, I have 3 older brothers, was in theater and he got me into it. He got all my brothers into it and I loved it, but I wanted to sing in these plays and they never let you sing. And I was like, this is a joke. Why aren't we singing? Mm-hmm. And actually my mom was like, I will let you and your friends go do this thing. I don't even remember what it was. That's how not important it was. If you go and you sing in this competition. And I was like, done, I'll do it. I'll go sing in this competition, because she knew how much I loved to sing. And the second I did it, I've not shut up since.
Really? So it really just took, so were you thinking like plays were more musical?
Yeah, and ours were never musical growing up. It was always smaller productions because it's such a small school. You couldn't put together a full-fledged musical. And I was always like, where's the music, guys? When are we going to sing?
Well, when does, as you're writing your music today, right? And with your songs, sounds like you come from a larger city than what you're originally from. So I'm curious to know, where does this small town roots play in your music?
I think it's in everything that I do. Even just simply driving here today, I was like, wow, there's a lot of red lights. It plays into everything. I think all of my songs have a little bit of that small town roots in it. It's very like grassroots into the music. I think even Bury Me on Broadway touches on some of those original country songs. You know, we say she stopped loving him today instead of he stopped loving her today. And I think everything that I do just has that little tiny hint of that old grassroots country vibe.
Do you remember the first CD that you ever bought?
Oh my gosh, no. I don't. I knew I had an iPod at one point, but my brothers were the CD people and I just stole them. It was probably High School Musical or something.
So would you say, well, what was the first artist that you ever listened to where you just fell in love with their sound?
Oh, Shania Twain was huge when I was growing up. I mean, she still is.
Shania has really reached a large demographic in all different age groups.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about Shania? Was it, because I didn't realize about Shania until I actually moved here. I know that's
really.
Well, I mean, look, this interview is not about me, but I'll tell you this:
the woman was too stunned to speak.
She was. First of all, she's gorgeous, even to this day, right? And Shania Twain just wasn't what I was listening to growing up. What I listened to growing up before I moved here, a lot of Eminem, a lot of hip hop, and I really didn't find the love for country music until I really moved here. And then that's when I really started to listen to the musicianship behind it. It's not that country pop isn't hot and that I enjoy listening to it,
right?
But the musicianship of watching you on Broadway play with a full band, that is what got me into country music. So
that's cool though.
Shania Twain though, for you, what was it about Shania?
Oh, the Woman in Me album is incredible. And I remember listening to that growing up. My parents would blare it throughout the house and I'd just be going around singing about things I would never understand at that age. But that album, I think, was what really sealed the deal for me in songwriting. Because everything about it is so layered and so deep. And all of her artistry and all of her songwriting, it touches on so many different levels. Like you're listening to something and you think it's this, and then you listen to it now versus, however old. And I'm like, whoa, this actually hits on so many other levels that I never thought it hit before. So it's transcendent upon time. And I think that's the best part about her music.
I mean, that is honestly one of the best parts of just music in general, right? Is that music can always transcend time, talk about a certain piece of time, and it just continues to move on the conversation. So speaking of that, I want to move on the conversation a little bit more. So obviously you just released your latest single, so Just Say It.
Yes.
And talk to me how different Just Say It is versus Bury Me on Broadway.
Oh my gosh. I think they're in the same family. Like they're siblings, but they're not twins. Just Say It really kind of goes into, I always say it feels like Faith Hill, This Kiss, or Kelsey Ballerini. Like if the two of them could be intertwined, it'd be like their child. I think versus Bury Me on Broadway is a little bit more edgy. It kind of felt like I needed to come out with something that was really strong to introduce people to this new area of my music. And Just Say It is a little bit softer. It's more bubbly. When we were filming the music video, I was like, wow, I get to actually be happy in this video. We don't have to be upset or like moody. We get just to be happy. And I think it's exciting to show people that side of my artistry because we've never done anything that was just purely bubbly, and it feels like bubblegum country, whereas Bury Me on Broadway is like Morgan Wallen and Kelsey Ballerini vibes for sure.
When you go into the writing room, do you go into it with an idea? Do you go into it with a melody? Do you go into it with what's your writing process like?
I try so hard to come in with several ideas Sometimes it's a melody and you have to do the embarrassing thing of like, here's my voice note of me after I got out of the gym and I'm out of breath and I'm just humming into my phone. But most of the time I just come in with titles. Melodies, I'll have an idea, but a lot of the time I try to come in with as many titles as possible. And sometimes we don't even end up writing those. We go off on something similar to, but still so different.
So when you were, putting down these ideas on your phone, is there ever a time where has someone ever listened to these messages and voice audio recording just out of the blue that was on your phone? And does a lot of people say that if they were to listen to messages like that, they would think that you're crazy?
No, for real. Like so crazy.
So what's one of the things that may be on your phone that you said into your phone that if I were to listen to it, I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Oh my gosh, like everything on my phone.
Well, give me one. Give me an example.
I had one. We're just going to expose everything. A few weeks ago, I wrote down this title called Tequila Tears, and it doesn't really even make any sense. I don't even like tequila. And I pitched it to this right, and I was like, I don't know anything about tequila, but I thought about, the fact that like I just don't love tequila, and we could write about hating it. And they're like, oh no, we're going to write a song called I Hate Tequila. And I was like, oh wait, I actually have a whole thing in here about me hating tequila, and we can just scroll my phone about all my experiences.
Wait, what's your beef with tequila?
It just doesn't do it for me. I've had too much bad tequila.
Really?
I play on Broadway.
I mean, if you were the one to set it up, so I'm going to let you set it up. So first off, walk me into just, transitioning from that small town to Nashville, Tennessee, where it is, you moved here, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
And what's it been like from the jump of moving here to where you are today in the fall time of 2024?
I feel like I've grown so much just as a human. 3 years ago, I didn't even really know where I was going in music anymore. I was kind of lost in songwriting. I had an idea, but I was kind of getting to this place where I was like, I don't even have music that I'm loving to release right now. And it took about a year and a half ago where I was like, we're going to completely pause writing music. I also went through a vocal struggle, so I was kind of forced to just stop talking and writing, so that helped. Mm-hmm. But I paused writing music, and I was like, we're going to sit on this and try to figure out where I'm going. And a lot of this music that's coming out now is purely from that time frame. I think 3 years ago I didn't feel green. You move here and you're like, I know things for sure. I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And I look back at myself even just 3 years ago and I'm like, you were so green. We did not know what we were doing yet. We had a very good idea, but now I'm like, I had no clue what was going on.
What helps a songwriter in Nashville to find their voice, right? So you said you're on Broadway a lot, and you do a great job on Broadway. I haven't listened to it yet, but I've seen videos on it because you do a really good job of self-promotion, which you guys should too. But I'm very curious to know what makes a musician turn into that full-fledged musician that people see from the rest of the United States when they move to Broadway. What are those things?
I think it's all about self-advertisement. I mean, you have this tool in your hand that's going to give you so many people just literally at your fingertips. For me, it was making sure that I make a point to still be an artist while singing other people's songs. I always say if it wasn't for Broadway, I would have no idea what I was doing on stage. I didn't even really know how to set up an entire set list. I knew what I wanted to play. I knew what keys I needed it in. I knew how I wanted the basses to go around. I had the bones, but I didn't have the whole entire house, the windows, the doors, you name it. And playing on Broadway, I honestly give it so much credit for me even just being able to do anything musically, because I think it's helped me just become an artist. And, it takes 10,000 hours to perfect your craft, right? And I feel like being on Broadway for me has really been me just grinding my teeth and hitting the road.
Now, there are folks that never went the Broadway route.
Yeah.
Especially here in Nashville, with there being such a large community of musicians.
Yeah.
There are so many musicians that never went the Broadway route. They decided to just do songwriters rounds. And for the folks, once again, if you're new to Nashville and what our stories are, songwriters rounds are just small venues where country artists will have songs that they perform into more people that like to listen to real local music.
Right.
So, a lot of times when you first moved to Broadway, did you start to touch more on the songwriters rounds, or did you try to get your foot in the door with Broadway?
Oh, I wouldn't just get my foot in the door with Broadway for sure. And then I had to remind myself that I'm also an artist, so I need to play more rounds. But I was on rounds before I even went on to Broadway. It was never really my intention to land on Broadway as like a full-time job. I was writing and trying to do things, but you're writing and you're playing rounds and they don't really pay the bills. So you're thinking, I have to pay rent. How am I going to pay rent if I need to be available Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to write from this time to this time? And well, you have this option to play 4 hours and you can still do your rights and you can still pay your bills and you can still do all the things that you have to do to be an efficient member of society, I guess. Like trying to get stuff done. I'm still learning how to an adult, so I have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, you know what? Speaking of not knowing what you're doing, you do know what you're doing on Broadway. But before we get to that, we got to take a pause in our video to shout out the sponsor of this episode. So right after that, we'll be right back with Dariann. This episode has been brought to you by Manscaped. The new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is every man's cheat code to look good, feel good, and turn the page on confidence this year. Go to manscaped.com, use the code GOLDS20 for 20% off plus free shipping today. Artists that do not take other artists that play on Broadway seriously. There are so many times that I've had musicians say that, hey, I'm not a Broadway artist. Mm-hmm. Or others that say that I would never do Broadway. It's too hard. There's no reason for them to do it.
Right.
What's your response to folks that do not view Broadway artists as working musicians in the industry?
It's so tough because there is a lot of people that think that way. And I think everybody has a right to feel however they want to feel about that. But I think a lot of musicians on Broadway are just artists that are trying to do the simple thing that everybody else is trying to do. And that's just make a voice in this town. And I think sometimes I've found myself so much more playing other people's songs and covering other people's songs. And I found where I want my sound to go. It's given me the opportunity to play songs to people and think, okay, this song goes over really, really well. I need to write a song like that. And I think that that's huge when it comes to songwriting. For me, I don't know if I could play my originals the way that I do if I haven't spent as much time as I have playing cover songs. So it's a double-edged sword, certainly, but I think there's a lot more to offer with musicians on Broadway than people like to think there is.
What does a day look like for a musician that works on Broadway?
For me, it's I wake up in the morning, I do the whole getting ready thing, and then I go downtown. I'll probably grab a write after my show, or I have meetings or voice lessons, all the different things that you're trying to do to perfect your craft to be able to one day be on a bigger stage. Mm-hmm. I think the competition is really tough because you can find competition wherever you go. For me, I've just tried to view it as I'm going in and I need to just become the best artist that I can possibly be. You start off with morning shifts. For me, I feel like every morning shift there was at every spot I was playing. And now we're closing it out at night and we're playing to large packed rooms. And you can play to large packed rooms in the morning, but you kind of have to pay your dues. And I feel like I said, there's no me on stage playing my originals without the version of me that's been on Broadway.
Kind of leaving the idea of Broadway, but there's some fun questions I want to ask. What is the number one song that everyone asks you to play?
Oh, Man, I Feel Like a Woman. We always play, and everybody calls it Man, I Feel Like a Woman too. I play that a lot. Lately, I've gotten a lot of Lainey Wilson. And there's always Gretchen Wilson. Everybody loves Gretchen.
And who doesn't?
Right? I do.
What is, now what's a song that you typically say, no, I'm not going to play that?
I don't, and this is such a controversial take because everybody loves this song. I don't love singing Goodbye Earl.
Really?
I love the song, the melody, everything is so good, but sometimes I feel awkward singing it. I was just talking about this the other day because somebody asked me this, and I was like, I just feel so awkward singing about it, and I don't really know why. But sometimes I wonder if somebody in the room could be going through something like that, and I'm like, I feel bad.
What is one artist that's way too challenging to sing?
Oh, Martina McBride.
Really?
Yes. I've played 3 different 4th of Julys and I've avoided singing Independence Day without even being requested it, which is the most shocking thing.
And it's just due to just the vocal inflections, or is it also...
It goes really high. The range in that song is really wide. And when you're singing for 4 hours, it's really tough to have songs like that repeated over and over again because you're really focused on longevity.
What's the best time, just like my barber, the best time to get my haircut is not at the end of the day. You want to go right kind of in the morning, right before the afternoon, right when he's starting to get his, his groove going. When's the right time to watch a Broadway act?
Ooh, that's a great question. I feel like lunch hours are a really good time. Anytime where it's revolving around food hours, I guess. I think a lot of the times people miss out on morning shifts for musicians because I think there's a lot of intimate songs that can be played and you can really connect with somebody in the morning. And obviously always at night. I think you're always good going at like 7 o'clock is a prime hour. If you want to catch somebody where they're really pushing the show along and you're getting a really good groove, go at like 9.
And last question I have is like, what's it like being an attractive female singing on Broadway where it's predominantly, most of the time, men that are watching you sing? What are those interactions like?
It's crazy. I literally a few weeks ago, somebody was like, can I pay you to pretend that I'm buying your boots? And for me to pretend I'm giving them to my wife. And I was like, hold the phone, make this make sense. And then sometimes it's like weird Venmo requests. I got one the other day that was like, I don't have a song request. I just want to tell you that I love you. And I was like, okay, thanks.
Is it weird to be a musician and, playing in front of, guys that have been drinking? And I mean, how vulgar can it get?
Oh, it can get very wild. A lot of the times it's people in situations where they think they're being helpful. And I get that they have the best of intentions, but most of the time I'm like, hey, we got it handled. Please politely get off stage. We don't need you on stage.
What's it been like to work these hours and then transition it, turn the switch, stop singing other people's ish and start singing your own?
Oh, it's tough. Nobody ever thinks about that either. So I appreciate you thinking about that. It's really tough to go from singing Let's Go Girls to, hey, let's write this really sad song that I've been thinking about for a few days. And it goes a little like this. But also we do get, and this is kind of circling back on that, we do get requests for our original songs, which is really cool because it kind of is a great reminder in the middle of your set that like, oh yes, thank you for reminding me to remind you that I am in fact an artist and I don't just sing these songs. But it's really cool. I feel like I get to play both parts where you get to feel like such a rock star and sing somebody else's songs, yes, but it kind of gives me that preparation for when I get to do that with my own songs.
How much in trouble would you be if you went completely, you went off the rocker and just decided, hey, today I'm not playing anyone else's music. I'm playing my music. How much in trouble would you get on Broadway if you did that?
I'd probably, and it wouldn't be in a way where I feel like I wouldn't have a job, but I feel like it'd be really dumb of me to think that I could do that and keep a room, especially because nobody knows my songs. And it's kind of like when I get an opening set for an artist, I field as many of my originals in there as I possibly can, but I also try to throw songs that people are familiar with because I've been to shows where you're only hearing original songs and it's really, really fun, but it's hard to get into that we're going to party when you can't sing along. So I kind of get both sides of it where I want to only play you my original songs, but I also know that you want to be able to sing something that you know and like scream it to your friends and just have the best time ever. So I don't think that I could field a room of that for that long.
Who have you opened for since moving to Nashville?
Oh, geez. There's been a lot, and it's been really, really fun. This year I opened for Parmalee and Lanco just a few months ago. I've opened for Joe Nichols. We've opened for Big and Rich. Too many, and it's so fun. Every single time it's so fun. Lori Morgan, you name it.
Do openers get the same interaction with the headliner, or do they never see each other?
I've kind of played a little bit of both. Some people will give you a lot of attention, and some people you might get a small interaction with, and some people you might not get anything from.
Do you get the respect being an opener to a headliner?
Joe Nichols is one that paid me a lot of respect, and I really appreciated it.
Is it a normal thing where openers for concerts do not get, because everyone starts as an opener. I
Yeah.
can't stress that enough. Lainey Wilson was an opener. So what I'm trying to say is that, do openers get the love and the respect that they deserve? Because just like you said, Broadway artists, they're artists too.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you guys get that same kind of love with the headliners?
It's different because they're more familiar with the headliner. A lot of the times I'm going in, if it's in my home state, they probably know who I am, which is really cool. But a lot of the times, some of these people have never heard of you. So it's a lot of new love. And a lot of the times you get that sort of an energy from a crowd when it's getting closer to the person you're opening to's set time. So the last 10 minutes of an opening act I've found is my most important 10 minutes of the entire show. Your opening and your closing is the most important when I open for people. The set list, I'm very specific with where it goes from there. You do get similar love, but it's different because these people, like when they're going to watch Joe Nichols, they're invested. They've heard Broken Heartsville years ago. Great song, by the way. And now they're all the way at Home Run. So they know all these different songs. They feel like they've known him forever. They've grown up with him. So it's a little bit different. Whereas for me, we're just beginning that journey.
What's been the most intimidating room you've ever played?
Ooh, I was really scared to play the listening room last year.
Hey, well, first of all, if you're getting the listening room, that's a big feat. That's one of the Nashville staples when it comes to songwriting.
Yeah.
So why were you so nervous about it?
Because it is the staple. There's so much pressure behind it. And I think there's really only the pressure because we as songwriters know the people that have played there. And anybody that lives here knows the people that play that stage. And also it's just different from the stages that I'm used to being on. This is a stage where people are sitting there and they're in tune to my original music. And it's really also kind of your chance to introduce some originals. They've probably never heard any of these. They've never heard of you. And they're coming to Nashville to hear songwriters and you get to represent that. So for me, I was shaking in my boots backstage before we went up because I was like, okay, these are the songs I'm going to play. I hope I don't forget words, guitar parts, whatever. I certainly messed up, but it was so much fun. It's such a welcoming room. Everybody that works there is so lovely. The crowd was so much fun. My mom came into town, so there's a little bit of home, like mom's there, and you're like, okay, everything's okay. It was very nerve-wracking, but it was probably one of my favorite shows to date.
As you're getting more in tune with the city, as the city's starting to recognize you more, are you a little bit more intimidated that these rooms have people with maybe like a 250,000 Instagram people? And, does that ever get you kind of feeling a certain type of way? Or do you go into it feeling like, hey, just because this person has a large following doesn't mean I can't take some of their following? Or would you think of it that way? I don't know.
It kind of is. You have to think of it that way because it is such a numbers game, which sucks because you have to think, okay, business, we have to know this person has this and I have this. What can we bring together on this? And it's hard because it feels like some relationships have failed to be for personal because of it. But a lot of the times I don't even know what somebody's number is. And I almost prefer it that way. I prefer to go in and not really know everything about someone because then I'm not as nervous to meet them. And I don't feel like I have to do this, that, or the other to gain their respect. I'm just me.
Who are you the most nervous to meet so far in Nashville?
Ooh, this is so silly. I was so nervous to come in when I did the listening room and meet people that run the listening room, but I actually had a meeting, oh my gosh, with a woman that worked at Big Loud when I first moved into town. And I was like, okay, when you go to meetings, you have to buy their coffee, you have to be there super early, and you don't seem needy, but be eager, but not too eager, all of these different emotions, right? And I sat down and she was the most chill. It was the most chill conversation. It was very relaxed. We still talk some. We bonded about dogs, which was so sweet. And I found myself in that room in the most random ways just by saying I was from Minnesota and she related to this. But I was so scared to go into this room and mess it up because I thought everything that happens to me after this is going to be dependent on me passing this test. When a lot of the times it's just about being yourself.
How much as a musician coming up, how important is salesmanship?
Oh, it's so important and it's so hard. I had somebody right when I'd moved into town ask me what my elevator pitch was, and I completely broke. I had no idea what my elevator pitch was. I'm looking at everybody around me what's my elevator pitch? And they're like, it's the highlights of all the things that you've done. And I started saying it and I was like, I'm failing. And then he literally stopped me. He's like, I'm going to stop you and I'm going to ask you to restart your elevator pitch, which I feel like is the scariest way to go into giving somebody your elevator pitch. But then I had like a second to settle and I told him all the things about me as quickly as I possibly could. And he's like, that one was much better. Keep that one. It's really tough. And I think it takes hit or miss sometimes. Like I messed up and he was like, I'm going to give you a second opportunity to do this. And that's where I was like, okay, we're going to say all the important things.
Have you had a second to step back and be like, wow, I'm really trying to live out this dream of mine? And, what are some like goals that you have coming up in the near future?
Yeah, I had that moment when I was home last time, flying back, and I was like, I just played that. We just did that. For me, right now, it's just to keep writing and releasing music, which sounds so small in the grand scale of things. Obviously, like my biggest goal is to play the Opry. I think that's everybody's. I want to start opening for more people. This last summer, my focus was we have one opening act show. We're going to write all the music. We're going to get all of the music done for next year, kind of take it one step at a time. And I try to go at a year at a time. And next year, I just want to like hit the road, open for more people, do the whole thing, show my face to more people, make more friends, do the whole thing.
The music that you're releasing in 2024 and at the last quarter of 2024, when was that music made?
Most of it is made half a year, if not a whole year before. I tend to run about a year, if not like 8-ish months ahead. The music that I have right now has all been written well before the end of last year. That's all been released. Bury Me on Broadway was, I think, May of last year. And then Just Say It was around the exact same time last year. Actually, it was like September of last year. And now some of the songs that I'm just writing now, I'm in studio tomorrow on a song that I wrote several months ago that's going to be released the top of next year, so 2025. So yeah, we're all working on stuff so early.
So does it ever get kind of like, does it ever hit you when you release a song like Bury Me on Broadway a year after or almost up to a year of writing it and putting it all down? Does it feel old to you?
That one didn't. Bury Me on Broadway didn't feel old to me, and I've had that with several other songs that I've released. A lot of them are slowly coming off streaming now because my sound is so different, and that's kind of the goal of where we're going now. But Bury Me on Broadway didn't, and I was kind of expecting it to do that, but Bury Me on Broadway hit so different for me because I took a break from releasing anything. I wasn't loving what I was releasing. It was all very good, and I still love it. It's great music, but it didn't feel like me. It kind of felt like an older version of me, and I was just continuing to release that version of myself that I don't feel anymore. And so going with Bury Me on Broadway felt like I was finally caught up when it comes to releasing music and who I am now.
So talk to me about Just Say It. How was the rollout for this one? And, what are you doing differently per song on how you're releasing it to the public?
Yeah, I don't tease it as much. Just Say It, we literally teased once and then I released it and that was it. And we've just been going off with that since then. Bury Me on Broadway was a little bit more of a tease because I felt like my fans were waiting for something and I needed to give them something before they went wild. Just Say It, I went to a seminar that Megan Maroney put on. It was that country radio seminar. I was not able to make it into anything at all, but I made it into hers. And she talked about her music and how she teases stuff to her fans and just the opportunity to be an artist, especially as an independent now, and to just be able to say, this is coming out tomorrow. Or this is out right now, go stream it. Which feels like it's the opposite of what you're supposed to do because you want to gain all this excitement. But something with Just Say It was really cool to be like, hey, this is coming literally tomorrow.
Has Megan Maroney recently kind of inspired you a little bit more?
Yeah, I think her visuals for her music is amazing. They're different, which I think is what also catches people like me who create and also do write music to go with that vibe. Just Say It, the photo is very different from any of the other photos I've done. The music video that we have coming up is entirely different from every single project I've ever done, which makes it so exciting for me because it felt like I was living in a Barbie music video, like a Barbie Malibu Barbie house is what I felt like I was living in. And I think listening to her talk about how she game plans and how she tries to make sure every song is different, I heard that and I was like, we're going to do this so different.
Talk to me about EPs. Is that something that you're interested in exploring this year or next year?
Yeah, we've really started talking about that now. Every single song I'm writing, I send it to my team and I'm like, hey, I think this song needs to be released. And they're like, that would be your 8th single next year. And I'm like, so you're saying we can't have 8 singles? But that's really been the move, is moving towards EPs and potential albums. I feel like it has to be an EP first. I had originally done an EP. My first ever single was called Give Me a Minute, which is very ironic for it being my first single. I didn't even think of it that way. Now I see it and I'm like, that's kind of iconic for me to be like, hey, give me a minute and listen to my song called Give Me a Minute. We have so many songs right now that I feel like we're really starting to tailor towards everything that is my coat of many colors. So when you're listening to it, you're like, this is Dariann. This is Dariann. This makes Dariann unique. And I'm trying to decide if we're kind of going towards something like that. Right now, I think we're still going to be in single world for a little bit. But I'm thinking like end of 2025, 2026, hopefully we start looking at EPs, albums, you name it.
How do you gain the track? How do you quantify the traction of a single?
I think it's all on people's response. And obviously you have to look at numbers. There's that game too. I'm that typical artist that hates numbers because I just want to do my thing.
Where are you looking specifically on numbers when you release a single? Are you looking specifically on Spotify? Or are you looking on TikTok, or what quantifies it? Yeah.
Yeah, Spotify is known to be like every 6 weeks you should be releasing another single. And we've been on the verge of that, but I always feel like I need a little bit more time. When you're looking at the Spotify streams, I always feel like it goes up and then it kind of falls back down, and you need to give it, at least I feel for me and my audience, I need to give it that second shot to go back up, and then it will start to fall on streams. And that's when I hit you with the next single. That's what we've been doing this whole year.
Are you your worst enemy?
Yeah.
Why would you say you're your worst enemy? Is it are singles ready to be released, and is it you that's choosing not to let it be out in the world?
There are times where I'm like, there's still things that need to be better, guys. And they're like, Dariann, we've done all the things. We've done everything. And I'm like, no, but there's still this one thing. I think it's self-doubt, right? Like we all struggle with thinking, is this good enough? Are people going to like this? What if people hear this little tiny thing that I think might not be 100% perfect and they're never going to notice it?
Okay, so Dariann, you ready for crowd noise? And here are these questions
Let's
I got. All right, let's do it.
Most rewarding song you've been a part of?
Oh my gosh. I wrote a song with Nathan Wilson, Liam Coleman, and the one and only Carson Wallace called Leaving Season.
Leaving Season.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's from a girl's point of view?
No, male's point of view, which is even more interesting about it. We walked in and we didn't know what we were going to write about. And Nathan walks in and he's like, I really want to write about the leaves. And we're all like, the leaves? We want to write about the leaves? And he's like, yeah, I want to write about the leaves and how people leave in the fall. And I was like, oh, so like Leaving Season. And Carson's like, that's the song. That's the song that we're writing today. And I think just the overall artistry of that song and the poetic songwriting is something that it's like a writer's high. We all sat there and listened to it for well over probably 25 minutes, just listening to the song over and over and over again and being like, this is really good, you guys.
Well, when is the right time? And give me the answer to this. When's the right time for the girl to leave? And when's the right time for the guy to leave?
If it's like the song, it's July. The song says her July blue eyes don't look good with tears up in him, and that's when the guy left. I think it depends on the situation.
Is there ever a point where you get to that, before you leave somebody, right? Mm-hmm. What is it like to have that feeling of this was time spent with this person and that's time I'll never get back?
Oh, that's the most painful. I think I always wished in those relationships that I would have left sooner.
Do you have multiple songs talking about heartbreak?
I do.
What's it like writing those songs? How do you get in that mind frame of making a heartbreak song?
I think for me, it's literally just the random times when I'm thinking about it and I write out whatever it is that I'm feeling and I bring it to the next write. And sometimes I just write it by myself. And which is tough. It's so much easier to write with other people because you have so many different minds that can make this so layered. But when it's just me, I'm like, I have to be so vulnerable here and I have to be so honest. I have a song, the song I'm recording tomorrow is called Feel Free to Forget. And that's a song where I was like, this is very vulnerable. And it talks also about leaving. Apparently, I have a thing with leaving.
Well, speaking of leaving, we can't leave these questions unanswered. So let's see what this next question is.
Your biggest musical influence?
So the most general question, who's your most biggest musical influence?
I think I would be lying if I didn't say Shania Twain. I love Shania Twain. Carly Pierce. We got Lainey Wilson, who is incredible, and I think she's paved such a unique path for country music. I also love Kelsey Ballerini because I feel like my music kind of sways towards her energy. And I also just love how vulnerable and honest she is in her songs.
Man, when I think of Lainey Wilson, seeing her, probably the only one of those guys that I've actually watched go from where she is to today. It's like a totally different person.
Right.
And I don't know if fame does that. I'm very curious to one day have a guest like that where I can ask the question of, at what point does everything change, So it's very interesting. So, all right, let's go on to this last question I got here.
Is your favorite publication you've ever been posted on?
Oh, CMT.
CMT. Oh, talk to me about the publication on CMT.
My first one was on a song called Closer. Mm-hmm. They actually put my music video on their website, and they've done that a couple times for me, which is so, so, so sweet. And they wrote the most incredible write-up of this song. And it was when I was going through an experience of loss. Wow, I really do have a thing with leaving. I'm processing this right now. It was about loss. I'd recently lost a friend of mine, and we talked about that, and they put this article up, and it was so surreal to see my name on their website because you're seeing Dariann Leigh with CMT, which is nuts. And I've got to visit them since then. Everything that I ever do with them is like the biggest thing in my entire life. Like, I love it more than a kid loves Christmas.
And then what are some publications you wish to be featured in?
Ooh, I used to read People magazine a lot. That would be really fun. Like, my mom would be buying groceries and I'd be like, can I please have the magazine? And she'd be like, that's $8. You're not buying the magazine. People would be really, really cool. Gosh, there's so many. There's so many different like country websites and like legends that have been featured. Oh my gosh. We've been in so many too that it's so hard to decide. People is huge though. That would be so cool.
I think that's one that everyone, if they see a CMT publication, a People's publication, or even Music Row.
Yeah, Music Row would be so cool.
Is one of those things where it's like an artist from a publication journalism standpoint is one of those things where it's absolutely amazing. Have you gone to perform on Today in Nashville yet?
No.
Really?
No, I think it was on my calendar at one point and it didn't end up working out. But I'm hoping to do it soon.
It's a fun experience. You should definitely talk to Carol about that. We'll see if we can get you hooked up there. Now, my last two questions that I ask on the show, everyone knows the questions I ask, but I love to ask them. So the first question's always about hate or that self-doubt. We talked about it. We briefly talked about it earlier in the conversation, but how do you not let that imposter syndrome break you down? Because that is something that happens to all of us. And what can you tell someone that's watching this right now, how to not let that imposter syndrome get to them?
Oh my gosh. I always have to remind myself that it's not so deep, which sounds really dumb for that to be the cure and the fix all. But for me, I literally have to remind myself in those moments that whatever I'm feeling is not nearly as deep as I think it actually is. It's all, in fact, much more simple than what I'm thinking. I mean, I have those moments all the time. I think we'd be lying, even just in any walk of life, if we said we didn't have self-doubt. You know, you wonder if you're good enough to be doing that. I made the set for my Parmalee and Lanco opening, and I was like, I don't think this is good enough. Like, are these songs good enough? And my band was like, Dariann, these are incredible. This is a great set. These are all the songs that we all do so well. It's going to go so great. But there's always that self-doubt, and it's not that deep.
I love that. And that's important. People need to know that. It's not that deep.
No.
Whatever's in your mind is literally just in your mind. That's not in everyone else's mind.
No.
So I love that answer. And now 2024. Talk to me about this release you got coming up.
Yes, this one is also about leaving. Somebody needs to tell me to stop writing about leaving. It's called If You Love Me, Let Me Leave. The title is Love Me, Let Me. This is actually the first song I wrote with Lenny Pay and AJ Gacio, who I write with all the time now. They feel like brothers, and they've been producing all of my music. There's been a few other producers in there, but they've been like the primary ones for me. Writing with them for me was falling back in love with writing music, and I've never actually told them this, so I'm just going to send them this clip and be like, hi.
What is it about this team that you're working with now that it's got you in that writing mode?
I think the fact that we have a lot of fun in between all of the writing and all of the work. We go in and we talk, we have a good time, we hijack snacks, then we write the song. And the songs feel so honest. And I think that for me is the best part about writing with them. And it feels easy, which isn't something that can be said in all walks of writing. I've been in plenty of writes where you're just grasping at straws trying to write this song. And sometimes where it's like you're just trying to get it done, which I hate going into writes and thinking I just need to finish this song. Writing with them is easy. And I think that's the most important thing. And it's hard to find your people as a songwriter when you move into town. It's really daunting. For me, I feel like this last year I've really found all of my people in songwriting. And that doesn't mean there isn't going to be more, but they feel like my people.
Well, that's important because you need a team around you that's going to help you grow. And that could be for anything. And for the Heart of the Gulch, it's you guys that help me grow. So I appreciate you coming on to the show here. But so I'll let you do this right after the applause here. And
Hey, y'all, I'm Dariann Leigh, and this is how I walk the line. So now you wanna call me, but you never wanted to say sorry. Oh, now you wanna show up like you want me. Boy, grow up. I thought that you would treat me better. I would never do this to you, ever. I still wanna be together. We just need a little time, need a little time. If you love me, let me leave. I'll be gone in the morning before you wake up. Everybody says you're bad for me, and then we'll never make it. It's gonna take you like 40 dozen roses. You're gonna need a couple friends to help you hold them. Oh, baby, I'm not saying that it's over. I'll come back to you, you'll come back to me. If you love me, let me leave. I'll come back again, I swear. I just need to ride around, windows down, wind in my hair. I wanna think about what you said. I know you took it back, but you said that. I just need a little clarity. And I hate it when you're mad and you stare at me. And I need you to think about how I could be yours and you could be mine, and we could be fine. If you love me, let me leave. I'll be gone in the morning before you wake up. Everybody says you're bad for me, and we'll never make it. It's gonna take you like 40 dozen roses. You're gonna need a couple friends to help you hold them. Oh, baby, I'm not saying that it's over. I'll come back to you, you'll come back to me. If you love me, let me leave. Love me, let me go. Love me, let me walk right out the door. Love me, let me do what I wanna do. And you know I'll come back to you, back to you. If you love me, let me leave. I'll be gone in the morning before you wake up. Everybody says you're bad for me, and then we'll never make it. It's gonna take you 40 dozen roses, and you're gonna need a couple friends to help you hold them. Oh, baby, I'm not saying that it's over. I'll come back to you, you'll come back to me. If you love me, let me leave, leave. If you love me, let me go, go. If you love me, let me leave, leave. If you love me, let me
go, go. If you love me, let me